Welcome back to Movie Reel. I am Samantha Tomlinson.
And I'm Kevin Tracy. Welcome back, folks. We kind of took a brief hiatus on you guys.
It was, yeah, we had, done like up until from Joker to Star Wars. I think maybe we had 1 week where we just like, didn't know what we wanted to do and we missed a week. But we pretty much just did like 17 episodes in a row and needed a little bit of a break. And then with everything going on, it didn't really feel appropriate. Um,
Yeah, it seemed
yeah.
yeah we definitely deserved a bit of a break after pretty much pumping out very consistently
Mhm.
multiple episodes. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done, but after everything that's been going on with COVID and the Black Lives Matter protests, it just seemed uh I guess kind of disrespectful to just kind of
Yeah.
continue on and not and just keep pushing forward like nothing was going on. So it just seemed like the appropriate time to just kind of take a break and
Yeah.
just kind of reflect, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
so
This
so yeah,
is very interesting times, obviously. You know, as for the protests, everyone who's out there, you guys are incredible, trying to make the world a much better place for everyone. Like I, you know, it's really outstanding what everyone's doing. Whether you're actually out there protesting or you're just posting on social media or signing petitions or donating to charities, we all want to be part of the solution, not the problem. Uh,
yeah,
all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. So it's that
I agree.
simple.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of surreal, kind of being in a moment where I was like 20 years from now, I was like, this is definitely going to be in like some kid's history book.
I
Like
our
this,
yeah, our kids are gonna ask about this. like
Yeah, no,
like
it's
yeah.
just really weird that like we're living in a time right now where like future generations are gonna like have to do like a report on this, and we're living it. We're making history right now, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. I granted a really small part,
Hmm.
but a part of it nonetheless. And just the fact that we can make a
Hmm.
change is I,
Yeah.
I don't really have words to describe it, and I didn't really plan on going on a tangent like this, but it was worth addressing, and I just hope that everyone that's protesting out there is staying safe. I know that there's like a lot of crazy stuff out there. Just be smart, protest where you can, just stay safe out there, everyone.
And whether you're protesting or just starting to creep out of your house, wear a mask for God's
Yes.
sakes. I a couple weeks ago, so this bookstore near me that I like, I said was opening up. I decided to go check it out, and I went down there, and it looked normal, which was very disappointing. And I know that everyone's aching to get out of their house. Like I get it. But like there
Yeah.
were restaurants that looked other than they were spread out, they looked filled. I was like, are you kidding me? And people weren't wearing their masks. Like I get if you're eating, but there was these I remember I saw these two girls sitting at a table just like their masks were off and they were like on their phones or whatever. And I was just irritated because I'm like, you're not in a bubble just because you're at your table. Like you're still next to other people. You're still in,
Yeah.
so just, I get you. Everyone wants to go out. Everybody, go out, but wear your mask, be safe.
Yeah.
We're seeing some states like Florida is maybe on the way to another lockdown. Like some states
Yeah.
are not looking good.
Yeah,
So,
and
mhm.
recently we live in California. Governor Newsom just issued like everyone or issued that everyone needs to wear a face mask. So please, if you live in California or in a surrounding area, just wear a face mask. And I know it's like, but wait, how can I wear a face mask if I want to eat? You can take your face mask when you're eating. You can take that off. Just make sure that you're practicing social distancing when you do that. Because
Yeah,
yeah, it's not. I
it's
know
not
it's a
rocket
lot, and
science.
it's really. I
like,
know it's really inconvenient for some of us, but the options are wearing a face mask, at most you're going to be mildly inconvenient. You're going to have to be a little bit distant towards people, and if you're wearing glasses, you're probably going to fog them up because you're breathing in them, and you're going to smell your own bad breath. That's the most inconvenient thing that's going to happen to you. If you don't wear a face mask, you run the risk of possible death, of exposing to yourself to a very infectious disease and then infecting everyone around you, and having them infect everyone around them and potentially dying. So I think the risk of you being mildly inconvenienced by smelling your own bad breath by wearing a face mask kind of outweighs death, in my opinion. So please, for the love of God, wear a face mask, please. Thank you.
There is another podcast that my sister and I listen to called The Flophouse. Many of you guys might be listening to it already. I recommend it. It's super funny. They just watch a bad movie and then they talk about it. And they recently, like 2 weeks ago or a week ago or whatever, they did a show where it was like a live show. It was just through Zoom as opposed to them releasing an episode. And I guess, I've never seen them live. My sister and I are dying to see them live, but they, I guess, do like do like a little presentation or whatever. And one of them, he did a whole presentation called "Wear a Fucking Mask," and he was using all of these, like he was like, who else wears masks? Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain America. Well, Captain America's mask isn't really helpful for this situation.
No.
It was really funny. Like it's in the first. If you can find this called Flop, just type on YouTube Flophouse Zoom, and it'll pop up. Yeah, whether you are just going back to your regular life or you're out there protesting, please wear a mask, be safe, because we all want things to go back to normal, and that's not going to happen if you deny what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think
I feel like a lot of people have. It's just a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is like no. It just seems like most news is just covering the various protests and all of that, and not covering COVID-19 anymore. So I think just people are just forgetting and thinking that, oh, it's not a big deal anymore. It's not a thing right now, so I can go out now. No, that is not the case. We have not gotten the all clear or anything of that nature. So please, still abide by self quarantine and lockdown rules as normal. Wear a face mask. Find some hand sanitizer. You know, just be safe. Just act like a germaphobe for a while. An introverted germaphobe, and you will live.
High school and college, I had friends that made fun of me for my hand sanitizer. Well, look who's laughing now.
Boom.
No one. But I remember it was some of these people, this was freshman year of college. They were roommates, and they would kind of tease me a little bit about my hand sanitizer and that I was a little bit of a germaphobe. I'm a normal germaphobe. I'm not a crazy. I'm not like a Howie Mandel. No, I'm not that he's crazy, but I'm not insane germaphobe.
No, you're not a monk.
No,
who's just afraid of everything.
I tend to I wash my hands more than probably a little bit more than the average person. But I remember they were kind of teasing me about my hand sanitizer, and they were both roommates, and they were getting each other sick. One got sick, then got the other sick, then got the other sick again, and I'm like, and you're making fun of me because I use hand sanitizer. But yeah, so bottom line, just be safe, whatever you're doing. What movie? Let's jump into it. What movie are we talking about today, Kevin?
We are talking about the 1987 cult classic movie Lost Boys. Super fun movie, directed by Joel Schumacher.
I know. I was like, yeah, hey, you.
I totally keep forgetting that this movie is directed by him. And for those of you who don't know who Joel Schumacher is, he is the guy who directed the classic movie Batman and Robin, the Batman movie with George Clooney, and also had Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is in that movie?
He's Mr. Freeze.
Oh my god. Okay.
Have you not seen Batman and Robin?
I have not.
Well, you are in for a treat because we are going to do that now.
So
I wasn't planning on doing that, but now we are.
so we thought, being that it's summer and all, we'd kick it off with kind of summer movies, and this is a very classic summer movie because it takes place in a popular summer hotspot, or it's not takes place. It is shot in Santa Cruz
Yeah.
at the boardwalk, and I I'm currently in the Bay Area. I'm in San Jose. I'm about a half hour from the boardwalk, and it's to me it's funny because I've grown up going to the boardwalk. I've been there several times, and it wasn't so for me when I this was also my first time watching Lost Boys. I know, don't I'm sorry. My sister, I was watching with my sister, and she loves this movie, partly because she loves both the Sutherlands. She loves Kiefer Sutherland, and she loves Donald Sutherland. But
That's fair. That's
but
fair.
but
I can appreciate that.
the whole time we're watching, we're like, "Hey, we've been there. Hey, that. Hey, that." Like, or it shows there's kind of the little, not, I don't know what it's called. It's like the little, like, it's not a Ferris wheel or the railway. It's like the little cart thing that you can ride that goes
the
over the whole boardwalk. I can't think of
Oh,
the name for it.
the gondola.
Yes, yes, and they have like weird little men things in there, and those are still in there. And we were
Yeah.
like, you, that guy.
I've only been to the boardwalk once, and that was a long time ago. And yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. They have like those random like statues of like
Yeah,
like a cartoon looking
caveman. Yeah,
caveman or something. Yeah. Um.
it was just funny because it's not like uh as opposed to me going to the boardwalk and being like, "Oh, this is so cool. This is where they shot Lost Boys." I'm I've been there. It's not like a big. I mean, it's all over the park. Like I think it's on the Giant Dipper, which is like the most popular ride there. If you ever go to the boardwalk, make a beeline for the Dipper. But they have like facts about the park, and I think they have like Lost Boys was shot here in 1980s, and it's kind of one of those things we all know of, but we kind of just, yeah, like, but we're also used to the boardwalk. Like, again,
oh yeah.
I've been going to the boardwalk before I knew about Lost Boys. Um,
Yeah.
but
Um.
it's yeah.
Yeah, and like what one of the like first like opening shots of the movie is just random B-roll of like people hanging out at the boardwalk and just kind of like the surrounding area, and it just like seems kind of like out of place, like
It goes
random like
on,
vacation.
yeah, for a
It,
second too long. It's
no,
it.
I feel like it goes on like for like an appropriate amount of time.
I mean, yeah, it's
It just
appropriate.
feels
It
like
was just random. There's
yeah,
a lot of random
it
people.
felt it felt like vacation footage, honestly. Just like
Yeah.
people like hanging out and just like with the random like street artists just like
Hmm.
spray painting stuff and just like all the hippies and stuff because it was like the 80s.
It's Santa
It was
Cruz.
just
Yeah.
it was just a really fun kind of montage because they were playing the song People Are Strange. It's like
Hmm.
people are strange when you're strange. I don't want to sing the whole thing. I don't want to get flagged.
um,
But
but
yeah,
it's there are so the two Corys, I guess, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, who after this movie started doing other movies throughout the '80s together. Um,
yeah.
and Diane Wiest is the mother, and we were like, "Ha, Diane Wiest!" And the older brother Michael, I know he's in.
Jason Patrick.
Yes, he's in Speed 2. That's all I know. I haven't seen Speed 2. I just know he's in Speed 2.
Yeah, I haven't seen Speed 2 either. I've only seen the first one with Keanu Reeves and I think Sandra Bullock. It's Sandra Bullock, and I think that was her first movie.
It was one of her first. I guess it's like what
Oh,
made
okay,
her. Yeah, but I don't know if
okay,
it's her first. It might have been, but it was definitely one of her first. But
yeah,
it's about a family, a mother and two sons, or two teenage sons, and they are moving to Santa Carla. And at a glance, though, I'm like, what Santa? At first, I thought it said Santa Clara, which is not anywhere
I keep
near
getting them mixed up. I keep
which
getting them mixed up too.
which is not anywhere near Santa Clara. Like, I'm in Santa Clara County. That's like 15 minutes away from me. I'm like, that is not anywhere near the beach. What are they talking about? And then I'm like, oh, it's Santa Carla. I'm like, okay. And then on the back of the billboard it said, "Welcome to Santa Clara." It said the myrtle capital of the world, which apparently Santa Cruz in the 1970s, and they were not the like local government. Santa Cruz was not, when the movie was, they were making the movie, they were not for it being called the murder capital of the world again, because it was, for in like the 70s there were
Oh,
three
geez.
serial killers in a period. This is all I saw on IMDb. So, but it
Okay.
said about I
Wow.
mean, it could have been. I mean, I don't know how, but like it said about, it was like a period of 30 months of three serial killers. About 28 people died. Like, they
Holy
weren't
crap. Wow.
right. Like that's terrifying, and I didn't know. I don't think I knew that. Um,
I was gonna make a joke, but actually knowing that is like,
Poor
okay, now it
taste.
seems ill timed. I'm gonna hold off.
um,
Um,
but I will say
but
though, I like that it was set. It I like the setting a lot because it gave it a lot of character.
yeah,
As opposed
there's
to
a lot to do with like a location like that.
it being just like a basic bitch small town where they would have had to have like a restaurant where everyone hangs. This was the town. This is what everyone was doing. It just was a really nice way to kind of just dive right in to
Yeah,
this
yeah, because
world.
I feel like if it was any other location, you're right. It would just be like a random suburb, like Hodunk small town, and they would have to have some excuse of like, oh, this is the one place where everyone hangs out at
Yeah,
because there's nothing else to do. In Santa Cruz, that I'm just gonna call it Santa Cruz.
yeah,
In Santa Cruz, like you have like the entire boardwalk. There's a beach. Like there's a lot of like very obvious places where people hang out with or hang out at because it's the boardwalk. It's an amusement park in your backyard. It makes
mhm.
sense that you would go there, and there's a bunch of activities that you can go and do there. So yeah, it does make sense that there's like I want to say like 40% of the movies just at the boardwalk.
It was funny. The first our one of our opening scene are. I mean, we don't know that they're vampires yet, but it's Kiefer Sutherland.
Vampires.
It's Kiefer Sutherland and his gang of vampires, and they're on a carousel, like bugging some girl, and like a fight breaks out, and then like a cop basically tells them to get lost, and they're like, fine, and then they just keep walking on the carousel. I'm like, a carousel is not a means of transportation. You're just going in a circle. You can hop off at any time. Um,
Also,
yeah.
I think one of the vampires in his gang is uh I keep forgetting which one's which. I think he's either Bill or Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and I keep forgetting which one Keanu Reeves is. So
So it's the one that's
because it's
whatever is not Keanu Reeves. I'm gonna look
yeah,
this up.
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that it's I want to say Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure because I think Keanu Reeves is Bill. Because it's
Yeah,
like if it's not him, it looks exactly like him.
yeah.
Which took me out of the movie for like a second, and also, they're making a new Bill and
Oh yeah.
Ted's
Oh yeah, yeah.
movie.
It's the guy that it's the guy that's Bill. Keanu Reeves is
Oh, it
Ted.
is Bill. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I could not remember for the life of me who's Bill and who's Ted because I've
Yeah.
only seen the first one like I want to say like 15 years ago,
Yeah.
so I don't even remember that movie that well. Um, so yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
they cause like a bit of a ruckus on like a carousel, and this like kind of like this like portly security guard just like puts Kiefer Sutherland in a headlock with his nightstick, and is like, "All right, I thought I told you guys to stay off the boardwalk," and then he kicks them off, and then he kicks the people that they were fighting off with too, and they're walking around the carousel for a second, then it just cuts to the amusement park getting shut down,
Yeah.
and him walking back to his the security guard walking to his car in this very large and empty parking lot, and for some reason he's parked like all the way at the end of this parking lot. It's like, wait, if you were here like when they first opened, why are you parked so far away? Don't you have like priority employee parking like near the front?
I noticed this. So as he's walking, he's basically about to be attacked by something, and he's running away. And you see his hat. His hand is on his hat, and then when it's like a long shot of him, or like an aerial shot of him, and he's just running, and then it cuts back to him. His hand is again on his head. I'm like, no, it like. Do you have any shots of him running from far away with his hand on his head? And then he gets attacked, and then yeah, I was like, I was saying right there, that would have been a great place to put the uh title, like the Lost Boys, which they
Yeah,
wait until like they do it right at the beginning before anything
oh right,
happens.
yeah. That's right. They play it in the very beginning during the opening credits when they're just showing B-roll of the
The boardwalk.
boardwalk,
Yeah.
and it's like the first time we hear like this like children's choir like musical melody that's playing, and this plays like almost like every song throughout this movie. I think they play it like 5 or 6 times. Just like da, da, da. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
children's like almost like gospel choir of them like thou shalt not and
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, like yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
play it like when like a couple characters die. They play it during uh like this like intimate scene with Michael and Star,
Star.
who's
Yeah.
like another like vampire like that's in the gang. And then they play it like a few more times of just like them doing like random like slow motion like stylistic like close-ups and b-roll of like them like having like a party montage, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
That's one thing about this movie is that it's very stylized in the sense of like it almost has like a music video kind of look to it. Like it's just like
Yeah.
very slow sensual kind of like R&B kind of
The sex scene reminded me, because the first shot of the sex scene, there's like a sheer curtain. So
oh my god, are you gonna say The Room?
yes,
Oh
I
god.
said that. I'm like, it's like the sex scene in the room, except it lasts much. It's a lot less. It's a lot shorter, and it was a lot less unsettling to watch.
Yeah. And there's a lot less nudity.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah, it's family. It's Michael, Sam, and the mom is Lucy. And I guess I don't remember what the circumstances are. Either the husband's dead, or they're moving in with her.
They got
They
divorced,
got
and she
divorced.
didn't.
Okay.
And she says later on, like after she moves, they move in with her dad, their grandpa, who in my opinion is the best character
That's
in this
what my
whole movie.
sister said. The
He
grandpa
is the best.
has amazing lines. I don't want to say it till later, but he has this great line, and it ends the movie. And I'm literally just like, after he said it, I'm like, please cut, just let that be the end, because it's a perfect
Yeah,
to end on, and it did. And I was like, yes, this
yeah,
this movie was really great. I really really liked it. It was
yeah. No, it's
fun.
really fun.
It was, but also because it is in you're it was vampires. And as we're watching, I'm like, so when, Michael, he's hanging out the boardwalk, he sees Star, he and his brother hang out the boardwalk, he sees Star, and he kind of follows her, and she's kind of like, oh, is she luring him away? And yeah, she is, kind of, sort of. And
Okay.
he basically, Sam and Michael, who are the brothers, they're at the boardwalk. Michael catches the eye of this girl, Star. She kind of walks away. He's kind of following her, and he's like, "Hey, want to go get something to eat?" And then Kiefer Sutherland and all the vampires show up, or the gang, the biker gang, show up, and he's like, "Star, like, what are you doing? Whatever." And
Yeah,
then he basically says, like, they're kind of he's like, it's like he's testing him, and he says, like,
yeah.
because they
Well,
have all motorcycles.
yeah, yeah. This is actually like the second time he. This is like the first time he like really interacts with her. The first time they
Yes.
meet, or like he looks at her, they're at like a concert of like this like really like greased up guy on stage with like a like padlock chain link
Mm-hmm.
like full chain like necklace, just playing the saxophone and just thrusting in the air. It's like, why is everyone watching this? It was a little uncomfortable, and he's like kind of following her from a distance, just kind of watching her. And before
Mm-hmm.
he goes up, she hops on to Kiefer Sutherland's bike, and then
Yeah.
his brother's like, "Ha, she stiffed you." And then he's like, "Don't you have something else better to do?" And it's like, "Actually, I do." And then he walks into a comic book store, and where we're introduced to the Frog Brothers, who are two of my also favorite characters. Played
Corey Feldman, and
and
he,
Jace. Mr. Newlander. I can't say his first name. Jameson Newlander. I cannot
Okay. And
cannot say that.
so something all so these three guys, they're all in real life. I guess when they were shooting this, were 16. I just for some
Yeah,
reason thought they were all 14. They are all kind of
yeah,
small, but my
yeah,
impression was that Michael was like 17 or so, and the others were about 14 because it made me think of how uh, I feel like there is a difference. Do you agree with this? There is a difference between in any kind of action adventure, whatever. There's a difference between preteens, like young teens, like or full on teenagers, like in high school. Like
yeah.
Stranger
No,
Things,
there's
for example, something that I love. It was what maybe clarified this for me because I've noticed when it's teenagers and they're like battling something or there's something going on. I'm trying to think of an example of like any like okay like Riverdale or Vampire Diaries, anything where it's teenagers. There's that
I haven't seen either one of
you I
those, so
mean
I
you
can't
don't need
really.
to you don't have to like it doesn't
Okay.
matter, but bottom line is they're teenagers, but there's that sense of like they're all kind of acting like adults, whereas when they're
Yeah,
kids they're like 14 or under. They are also kind of acting like adults, but it's also this is the same authenticity. If this was a game, this is like it's like a game almost, like they're
yeah.
playing.
No,
And
I can
do you know what
kind of
I
get
mean?
that, and yeah,
Like Stranger Things, there's so much they have like within their group. They have like this organization and like means of communication, and there's just this cleverness. And I'm not saying that there's not cleverness when they're older, but when they're younger, there's just something because it's like they've almost been prepping for it with playing and
all the games.
yes,
Yeah,
and it's like this is just there's a
yeah. No,
difference.
yeah. No, I feel like the younger you are, like the more likely you're able to like relate like a dangerous like life threatening situation to a game that you could play or have played like in the past, so you're not as scared and are able to kind of like more or less kind of play the game in a way, or play that game in a way that it's like, oh, I need to do this to make sure I don't die, just like my game. If I do this just like I did like when I played that game, then there's no way that they can get me. Like if
Exactly.
it's like I'm really good at hide and seek and I play that all the time and I need to hide from these bad guys. I just got to pretend like this is a really intense game of hide and seek and there's no way that they'll catch me because I'm unbeatable at hide and seek.
Exactly. It's yeah, exactly. It's like the game element is more there. And
Yeah.
I felt like that was totally here in this movie. And then when I found out they were 16, I was like, really? Because I thought that they were younger. Like later when they're battling the vampires, they're filling their squirt guns, which I'm like, I
Yeah.
love it. Like,
I I love that scene where they just bust into a church in the middle of like some baby's baptism and just go up to the area where they have the holy water and just fill up the squirt guns, and all the old people are just like just giving them like such judgmental and dirty looks, and the priest just like, what the hell are they doing? Like he's just looking at them, just like, what the hell's
that
going
was,
on?
I know, I was, that was so funny.
That's honestly like one of my favorite moments in the movie. Um, and yeah, the grandpa is also just every scene that he's in. I love it. Like he doesn't like ham it up for the screen. He's just naturally a really funny character. Like earlier on when he's like, "Are we having guests here again?" It's like so soon. It's like, "Dad, we haven't had guests in here since." Mom died 12 years ago. Yeah, and we're having guests here again.
I
It's like he's
laughed
just
so
so
hard at that line. That's what I was. I almost. That's what I was exactly. I was going to say that. I almost didn't say it just because I forgot it. I had to go back. So I'm like, what did he say? We were laughing so hard. He says something else that's like really funny. Like it's a really really fun group of characters.
yeah.
So later, Michael. So yeah, Archie Sam meets the Frog Brothers, and he has some in this comic book store. They try to get him into this horror comic about vampires. He's like, "Oh, I'm not into this," and They're
Yeah. And
basically
also, how can you not be into horror comics? Like some of the best comics are horror comics. Like Walking Dead, like that was like the number one like comic book for like 3 years. Come
I
on,
mean
man. Open your yeah.
is this
Sorry.
is no, but yeah, I it's just I don't know, taste. He has different preference. I don't know. But anyway, is this when they tell him they're acting really weird around him, and
Oh, yeah,
uh
extremely.
they say, also side note, the so Corey Feldman, my sister is telling me, I'm like, what else is he in? He's
He's in
no,
Goonies.
but like he's one of those actors that I mix up with another actor when I see that he's in something. But my sister was
Oh.
like, oh, because she said the one thing she knew I would know him from. She's like, he was in the vampire episode of Psych, and I was like, oh, he's the bartender at the vampire bar that they go to.
I forgot that.
um,
Oh my god, that is a blast from the past. I think I saw that episode once,
um, but anyway,
and I thought it
yeah,
was hilarious because he was just doing callbacks to
every and
Lost Boys and Dusk Till Dawn,
and
which is
and
another really fun vampire movie.
and then yeah, Gus is dressed up as Blackula, and everyone's like thinks he's Count Chocula. He's like, I'm Blackula,
Yeah.
and Sean's like, no, nobody remembers Blackula except us and Quentin Tarantino. um,
Hence the Dusk Till Dawn reference.
um, but yeah. So this is when they say like, oh, they say, is this was it now or is it later when they say that this is just our cover. We're vampire hunters. Like they're very aware
Yeah,
of, yeah.
basically.
So there's
Yeah, which
posters everywhere about missing people, missing kids, and I'm like, God, what is this? Like Dairy Maine? Like why are there's so many missing people and nobody seems to be like, but it's unlike it. There's no like sense of, oh, there's all these missing people. Everyone just is going about their life because it's Santa Cruz.
yeah, I and honestly, like other than like the few times in like the beginning where like we get like a lot of like emphasis on like a bunch of like the missing like people's posters, it's never really addressed again after that.
Yeah.
Like the mom's like walking around the boardwalk like just casually like looking for a job, and we see some lady posting a missing like sign of the security guard who was very clearly like killed in the very beginning of
Mm-hmm.
this movie, and I just assume it's his wife. And
Oh,
I think that's really like, and I think that's like really like the last time we see like the missing posters, and
I think
the
it's
mom comes across like this like missing kid, and is like, hey, can you help me find his mom? And she more or less like gets this job at this video rental store by this guy named Max, who's just like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally a nice guy, and just like has like this really kind of like stepfather kind
yeah.
of vibe to him. I don't know how else to describe him.
As for the missing posters, I mean, they weren't that overly important. It was more just the
No.
circumstances of this is something that's going on in this town. I really just love the way this entire story is told. It's just very, this is the place, these are the people. It's just very straightforward and very, I don't know how to explain it. It's very easy to watch. Uh, Something though that I did find myself thinking about is because we're entering the lore of vampires, and I have only really been you know aware of like I've only really seen a couple different types of vampire things, and I
Yeah.
was like, wait, so later, so Michael is with the gang, and they're basically like, you don't have. They're all on their motorcycles, and Kiefer Sutherland, whose character's name is David, he's like, you don't need to beat me, you just need to keep up. They end up taking him to their like hideout, and they're eating
And it's yeah, yeah, no, like and their hideouts like a abandoned
hotel or
like
something.
luxury like
Yeah,
hotel that like completely like crashed in like the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, and they're talking about it like, and David's like kind of like giving like this information like firsthand. Is like, was he there? Was he alive then?
wait, he
Like I
said
assume that he was because he's kind of talking about it like it's firsthand knowledge.
he said in the San Francisco earthquake.
Yeah, the 1906
Yeah,
earthquake.
but like, I mean, I guess there would have been I guess if this, I'm just thinking if there's an earthquake that big, I guess it would have been felt. I don't know. I wasn't alive
Yeah,
then, so I
well,
don't know the logistics of earthquakes, but
my
I can confidently
funny
say
enough,
that I'm
my
not
yeah.
from 19. I was not alive during the 1906 earthquake.
Funny enough, my great aunt was actually a 1906 San Francisco earthquake survivor, and she lived to be about 103 years old.
Wow.
I met her a couple times, and one of the funniest things that she told me was she hated she stopped going to the earthquake survivor reunions because she just found them depressing because every year she went, fewer and fewer people kept showing up because they kept
Oh,
dying.
oh
It's like that is so
no.
morbid, but so that's so it was really funny how she told it.
Oh no, that is really dark. That's so
It
good.
was it was really funny how she phrased it. It's like, oh, I'm glad you're having fun though. It's like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's
yeah.
fun, and nice. It's nice to see my friends, but it's kind of a bummer when I don't see the some familiar face. It's like, hey, where's Margaret? It's like,
Oh.
nah. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah. Um
yikes.
yeah, I'm gonna say this now, but apparently the original idea for the script was the idea of Peter Pan being a vampire, and and that
Okay.
was where, so like Michael, it was originally Sam's name was John because it was Michael and John. uh the dog
Okay.
is Nanatook, his name, after the dog Nana, who like
Oh,
their
oh yeah,
um
they're the husky.
and it was because, and I they essentially decided to scrap that part of it, and Joel Schumacher, I guess, wanted them to be teenagers because I think he said to be more interesting and sexier. Um, but
Yeah, that was one vibe that I got from this. Like, it just seemed like a lot of the scenes were like there's just like a lot of close-ups of just like everyone licking their lips just very slowly. It's like,
but
is this
yeah,
supposed to be sexy?
but
And also, the,
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
there's also one moment in uh, okay, so like every night, like the grandpa gives Sam a random like taxidermied animal because that's what he does. He's a taxidermist,
yeah.
and he just keeps putting like all the animals like in his closet, and on the door of his closet is just a random
Oh, picture of
oddly
Rob
sexual
Lowe.
picture. Yeah, Rob Lowe just like showing off like his abs and wearing like a very like white see-through like
He's
undershirt.
wearing
It's like, what the.
like a white tank top, and it's lifted up so his hands kind of like on his and I saw it, I'm like, why does this kid have a sexy poster of Rob Lowe in his room? And my sister's like, so basically, why does this kid have a poster of Rob Lowe in his room? Like, fair enough, fair enough.
Yep, no,
um
that's fair. That's
but
fair.
I more just,
Stupid question.
I more just thought, I don't know, it seemed kind of random, but also Rob Lowe was part of the Brat Pack, so I don't think it's weird that he's into Rob Lowe. I just thought it was very sexy for this kid. But then again, I mean, who knows? Maybe we have no idea on his sexuality. It's irrelevant to the story. Um.
Yeah, no.
Uh. Anyway. But yeah, we saw that, we thought that was we thought that was funny. Like, hey.
It's just so like out of nowhere. It's like, why is there a sexy Rob Lowe poster in his room?
But anyway, so uh like I was saying, so he is hanging out with. But anyway, I brought up the whole Peter Pan aspect because it's very still subtly in the story, which I like. I think if it was, it's nice. If it was more obvious, I think it would have been kind of weird. But it was because that's why they're called also the Lost Boys, because they're young
Yeah,
forever. So I like the ideas are still are still entwined with the story. But I brought this up because the hideout kind of reminded me a lot of the hideout in Hook, just like a little bit. Um, with like they are in a cave, and just the way it looked, it kind of reminded me of that. But anyway, so Michael is hanging out with them. They're eating Chinese food, and then David's like, "What? You like their rice? It's not rice. It's maggots." And he spits it out, and he throws the food down, and then sees, no, it's not maggots. It's rice. And then David's
but
eating.
but when he like originally looks into it,
Yeah.
it is just a bunch of maggots.
And then David is eating worms. What? Nope, no, it's noodles. It's like, what's going on? And then he says, hey, drink this. And Star's like, no, don't drink it. It's blood. And then later he says to David, it's like, you made me drink your blood. And it's like, you know what? She did tell you. She did
Yeah.
say it's blood. I get why you would have thought that's ridiculous. But he drinks it, and then later, they're hanging out on a train track. They jump off it, are holding on, and let go. And then the next morning, and they're egging him like, jump, jump, you're one of us, jump. He jumps, and then he wakes up in his room. And throughout the story, he's walking out in the sun. He still, everything about him seems to be kind of, he himself, something's up, but it seems like, I was very confused because, like I said, we're entering the world of vampire lore, and I was like, this is what, and my sister's like, it's a movie. Any movie, you can make, the vampire lore can be whatever you want. And I'm like, interesting, because my first taste of vampires, was Twilight, which is completely.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, everyone about vampires got to come up, but like, and the thing is, that lore of vampires is not at all based on traditional myths, but it's.
No, not at all.
But it's still
its own thing.
I still think it was in, aside from everything, it is still a creative way to look at it. Like, they were treating them like, no.
Aside from everything.
No, aside from, like, but like, they're treated kind of like they're like, as, even though they are very strong, they are also very like fragile, and when they like are, they die, they kind of treat it like they're porcelain. It's an interesting take. Is all I'm saying. But then
I really, from like my experience from like watching like vampire movies, vampire, like, just like contracting like vampirism, like turning into a vampire, they kind of explain it in like either one of two ways. One is kind of like medically, like it's kind of like a blood based like pathogen, like a disease, and like once you kind of contract it, you just kind of go through this like metamorphosis, and your body just kind of changes to whatever this like blood disease is that causes you to insatiably drink blood. And then there's kind of like a supernatural side to it, of them saying like, oh, like holy relics are poisonous to us, like holy water and crucifixes, and we can't touch silver because that's what Judas was paid with. He was paid in silver pieces, so that's why we can't touch silver rather than
the silver is an actual okay, because
well, it changes from like various like movies and mythology, but in traditional like vampire mythology, vampires can't touch silver because of its religious implications of like Judas being betraying Jesus. And stakes were originally, it was only made out of like a specific wood from the tree that was used to hang Judas. It was specific wood from that type of tree could only kill a vampire.
Okay.
Could hurt a vampire, not just any old wooden stake. But I think they changed. That eventually changed into like literally anything getting shoved through the heart made of wood would do it.
On Vampire Diaries, it had, again, I didn't really, other than Twilight at the time, didn't know anything about vampires, and that's a little bit more based in traditional, like, you can only come in if you've been invited, wooden stakes, but and there are like the original vampires, like they're the oldest vampires, to where every vampire came from them, and they can only die from like a certain tree, and it was like a tree that, I don't remember, it was like helped with their transformation. I don't remember, it's been a while. But True Blood, silver, they was a thing, and I'm like, what? I never heard of that. But True Blood, I will say, for me, was insane, because coming from my innocent vampire knowledge, it like the first episode, the one of the vampire, because the idea of True Blood is like vampires have come out, and everybody knows that they exist, and it's kind of like, they're treated like minorities, and it's an interesting way to look at it. And but one of the first things, it's Bill, and I'm Peter. I don't remember what the other one's name. I'm spacing, but he says something to her about like, his preference for blood is like it's like groin or vaginal or something, and I was like, ah, okay,
Oh, okay.
this is not. I would have not been able to watch this when I was, and I remember when this aired, I was like 12, or I'm like, there's no way I would have, and I didn't really get into it until I was like 13, but I'm like, there's no way this is not would have was not for my age group when
Oh, okay.
like it was very okay, but so in in Lost Boys, it's an interesting. He drinks blood. He then, I guess, the implication is that he died, but then he's a half
It,
vampire, and I was like the whole time like, is he
yeah,
a vampire?
it
And he's a half vampire, and he can basically he has to feed and become
yeah,
one.
they pretty much like the main kind of like takeaway is that he is a half vampire and that he'll turn into a full vampire when he like makes his first kill and feeds.
What I thought
Um,
was interesting though was because like again in like Vampire Diaries it's kind of the same thing, but if you don't feed, you'll die. So you
yeah,
die. Yeah, yeah,
or you'll just like become like a feral like killing machine, and it's just a really cool kind of take on traditional like vampire like lore and mythology, and just kind of twisting it into to fit a more modern setting, or as modern as you can get in
yes,
1987.
yes. Yeah, it was. I was like, is he a vampire? What's going on? It is all explained, and it's just kind of it's an interesting take on it. Because I'm like, oh, you could be a half vampire forever and just never feed. That's interesting. It just gets harder and harder to not feed, which
Yeah,
they played more with. They played more with Star, and then they kind of played it with Michael at the very end. But by that point, we all kind of like, well, who cares by this point? Because he's obviously he's gonna go back to human. Because basically, they said the Frog Brothers said if you kill the head vampire, then everyone will go back to normal. Because there's
yeah,
Star, and then there was a kid, Landy, who's
Vladdy.
Vladdy, who's like, yeah, he's like a little kid, and just they turned. He's like a half vampire, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what? Why did you turn this kid? Like,
yeah. No, it. There's never any explanation as to like why this like 8-year-old kid is a vampire with them. So it's just okay.
yeah.
Why not? Um,
And
but
I gotta say though,
yeah,
the
going back to the movie,
really
yeah,
quick,
they get him. Oh, so
sorry,
sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, the Michael. The next morning, he like his first of all, he's got the long '80s kind of hair. I'm like, I see where they got the inspiration for Billy from Stranger Things with the earring.
A little
And
bit,
like,
yeah.
there was a lot of moments in this that I'm like, I'm seeing the inspiration for Stranger Things. There was a couple. One was Michael, and then there was a couple other things I can't think of them right now. But but it's an '80s, it's a hardcore '80s movie. Anyway, continue.
I mean, yeah. Um, yeah, no. Going back to the movie, he wakes up like the next day or like the next morning, just in his bed, and he's just wearing sunglasses throughout the day, and he just kind of is like walking around during the day, like he's like hungover,
Yeah,
which in a way he kind of is, and I kind of like that kind of take of just like instead of just having him have like a very like mild kind of like reaction
the
to
sun.
sunlight, like instead of just like having like his sin like burning or sizzling, it's just him's like, oh, it just makes him weaker, and he's like kind of appearing like really like hungover and dazed. Like, oh, that's like a really cool take. And
Yeah,
then later that night, he's like, oh, like I gotta like figure out what's going on, because the night before he's flying out the window and he almost attacks his brother, and his brother's freaking out and calls his mom, who is on a date with her boss Max, which she literally started working there and she's already dating the boss. Like,
I know she's
okay,
very ready to get back out there. There is no,
yeah,
but oh, this was the other thing. So she uh is at the restaurant. Sam calls her. Oh, so late when Michael wakes up, she calls and says, "Hey, can you stay with Sam tonight? I got asked out. I really want to go." And and Michael's like, he's old enough to be home on his own, and I'm like, he is old enough to be home on his own. He doesn't need a babysitter. And my sister's like, I think
Yeah.
she just doesn't want him to be alone because she's out dating. And but anyway, Sam later is so we skipped. So when he's noticing, yeah, like what's up with Michael? He's acting really weird, and then he realizes he sees him in the mirror, and he's like, it's like he's like transparent in a mirror,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You're a vampire." He came to that conclusion very quick.
Yeah. It's like, oh my god, my vampire, my own brother is a shit sucking goddamn
And I'm like,
vampire.
but it's crazy because so he's taking a bath, and then he is the dog is in the bathroom with him. He goes underwater, and
The
Michael
dog
comes
just
in. The dog
launches
attacks
at him.
because he's gonna kill. I'm like, oh, it was like, holy crap, he's gonna kill his brother. Like, holy shit. And then yeah, he's like he's like flying almost. So he's like about to like fly away from his house, and he's like begging Sam to help him. And this is when Sam's calling the mom, and the mom is freaking out, runs home. And this is when I was like, oh, it's like in Stranger Things when Hopper asked Joyce out, and then she stood
Yeah.
him up. It was just
I'll,
yeah,
I'll,
but he
it's just funny because she called the house first, so she just took the time in the middle of her days, like, oh, I'm gonna go call my house real quick to just make sure everything's okay. It's like, wow, you really just don't trust your kids. Because she didn't know that
no,
her dad was gonna go out, and that's a really funny thing is that the grandpa in this, like, oh, I gotta go see the widow
the Widow
Johnson
Johnson.
to show her the work, and it's just her it's like a taxidermy like Pomeranian dog's like, dude, that's dark. It's like, do you got anything that smells like cologne? It's like, oh, I got some Windex. Like, ah, perfect. And he just puts some like Windex like on his hands and on his neck. Like, I'll see you guys later tonight.
The grandpa was a
He's
delight.
so
The
funny.
grandpa was a
He's
delight.
I honestly I would watch a whole movie just around that grandpa. He's so funny.
Yeah, I know, I agree. But this, and then basically Michael begs Sam to like help him. He doesn't know what's going on. He's freaking out, and Sam, of course, calls the Frog Brothers, and they're like, "Oh, you got to kill him." He's like, "I'm not gonna kill him. He's my brother." And they're like, "Okay, we'll do it." He's like, "Not, no, like we're not killing anyone." But he is, confiding in them, and they say we got to kill the head. And there's later, Michael is with the gang again, and he watches them like attack a bunch of innocent people, and fully seeing aware of what they've done to him and what's happening. And Star basically is also just kind of like him. She's a half vampire and just got sucked in, pun unintended, with this group, and also wants to. And later they go. He goes looks for her in the hideout, and they have sex. And I'm like,
Yeah, the sexy time.
yeah,
And this is like one of the other times where we hear like this like random like church chorus of children just like it's like, I don't know how I feel about children singing during a sex scene.
I didn't think about that. I'm gonna go.
It's just it every time it kept coming up like so many times throughout this movie. It's like, okay, who are these children and why are they singing at these very inopportune times?
That is a good
and
point. That was a good
and
point.
because they sing during like a sex scene, they sing when he's like, there's this close up of like him drinking this wine and him just like eyes closed and just like slowly licking his lips. Like, stop
I
trying to make this
I
sexy with the
agree.
children singing. It's not working.
I agree that that's weird. I did kind of like the music though, because it was like kind of creepy, and it was a nice addition. But I do agree it was
Yeah, no,
weirdly. It was interesting.
I did. Yeah, no, I did really like the synthesizer type music that they had playing it,
Mm-hmm.
but when they had like that like children's choir thing going off, it's just like, okay. Um, and one thing I do want to point out is about the Frog Brothers is that they're like 100% correct about like the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
They like it's like, oh yeah, we're vampire hunters, and when they do like
We've been aware of
finally
this for
like
a while. Yeah.
yeah, and when they do like finally like go into like the vampire like caves, like it's very obvious. Like this is the first time they're doing it. It's like, wait, how do they know all this? They never explain like how they know all this stuff that is 100% true about
Just
vampires.
through comics.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, through it's like did they just learn about this through comics? Did their parents teach them? Because their parents are just like these like I think we see them once and they're like these drugged out, like knocked out hippies just sitting behind the counter. Um,
Yeah, and
and
they
it's like
also,
how do they know all this?
there's a there's a part, so there's a part after Sam finds out, when the mom comes running home, he's like, no, I was reading a really scary comic, and because he basically decides, okay, I'm going to help my brother, and he kind of relaxes a little bit. He says, oh, I was reading a really scary comic, I just got carried away. And she's like, what? Like, and
You got all that from a comic book?
later he's like, hey, do you want me to sleep in your room? I'm just, it just creeped me out. I just, and she's like, yeah, sure. And then he's like, she's like, are you cooking? He's like, no, why? And he's wearing a bunch of garlic. She's like, oh, okay. Also, so later when they're trying to find him and the Frog Brothers, trying to find the head vampire, and they are thinking maybe it's Max, and they in the beginning, so he
You mean
comes.
David?
No, they
Oh
think
yeah.
it's
Oh no.
Max.
Yeah, Max.
They
Yeah,
do
that's
also
right.
think it might be David, but it's like they're like it's but Max, who's the guy that the mom's dating, he comes over to the house
Yeah.
and he's like, "Weren't you going to invite me in?" Which, or says something like I can't come in until you invite me in, which is very, vampire, can't come into a house unless you're
Yeah,
invited.
it's like oh yeah, because Michael's about to leave is like, oh, you must be Max, like, oh, you must be her oldest son. It's like, well, you're the man in the house, and I won't come in unless you invite me. It's just good manners. Like, fine, you're invited, Max, come on in, and then he leaves.
And
So it's like,
I
oh,
thought that
now we'll
was
never know if he was a vampire.
and I thought that was I thought that was just there to be there. I realized, oh, they think he's the vampire, but then I'm like, that seems a little too, like, why would you? I thought that was just, it was like a red herring. Um,
So did you legitimately like ever suspect that he was a vampire or not?
I did okay. So was this as that night goes on? I thought he wasn't a vampire, but then later when she's at dinner with him again, and he said, and because before that, before the dinner, Sam comes to her and says, "This town's filled with vampires," and he's like freaking out, and she's like, "I'm not going to hear anything about this," and she starts to tell him. That's when I thought maybe he is, just because the fact that we're still hanging on to him as a character, that he's more involved than just being, you know, uh, local. So I think that was when I
Yeah, no,
started thinking he might be.
because he's a werewolf. I don't know.
But their dinner is
That's the
the
twist.
dinner is hilarious because the Frog Brother Sam invites the Frog Brothers over, and the mom's like, "Oh, yeah, sure, you can join us on this romantic date where I cooked for him." And they're eating spaghetti, and they hand him a bowl of, they tell him it's cheese, and he sprinkles it
Yeah,
on,
Parmesan cheese.
and he's like, it's, at first I thought, oh, maybe it's salt, and they're like, no, it's garlic. I'm like, okay, garlic and cheese are very different substances. Like,
Yeah, no, it's
they
like
are not
he,
at all. And also,
he would have to like it would take him forever to like get it to like look like a powdered like Parmesan cheese. Otherwise, he would have like pretend like, oh, it's just really thick cheese
and
clumps.
that
It's like
color white that it
yeah.
is, it's only like that when it's uncooked. And uncooked garlic is gross. Like,
Yeah.
I've eaten, like, I love garlic. And when I cook with, like, I'll cook like whole garlic cloves, like I'll saute it, and sometimes occasionally it'll be undercooked. And I've had one, and it's just like, ugh, like, it is not good. It's like it's not good. So I'm like, first of all, how are you mistaking cheese for garlic? And he's like, and they're like, what? Or is it affecting you at all? And he's like, oh no, I
No,
look,
I like
yeah.
it. It's just a
And
lot.
then they hold a mirror, and then later they turn the lights off, hold a mirror up in front of him, and turn him on so that they can see his reflection. And I guess because I feel like I've seen a bunch uh I've seen more things that say that garlic and mirrors aren't really a thing. Like, that's just like very old style
E-
lore, and it doesn't seem to really
well,
apply anymore.
Well, I mean, we do see like earlier on in the movie, like Michael, like he's
Yes.
like translucent, so it would make sense that like Max would either have
Yeah, no, like
a similar reaction or no reflection at all. But yeah, I see what you mean. A lot of movies just kind of like ignore that takeaway or garlic in general because it just seems a little too hokey.
which is,
Um,
I mean, fine. I
yeah.
don't really care. I just more find it funny that. But my sister, when they're suspecting that the guy's a vampire and the mom is a date, my sister looked at me. She's like, "Mom's got a date with a vampire," which is like our one of our
Uh,
favorite one of our
d-
DComs, Disney Channel original movies. Um,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
the
No,
dinner does
it.
not go well. They Max leaves and he's like, "How about you come to my house and I'll cook for you?" And she's like, "Okay." And then that's kind of it. And it was just that dinner was hilarious. Like, what do you mean cheese
Yeah,
and garlic are not at all the same? There's no way you can
yeah.
mix those two
And
up.
that's one thing that always kind of confused me about like vampire mythology. Like I understand like like wooden stakes and sunlight and like silver and like holy water and like crosses, but like garlic and mirrors. Like I don't get what the implication of that. It's just like it's like garlic. It was just like one like notable vampire just happened to be allergic to garlic, and they just kind of like applied that to all vampires.
On
And what was up with mirrors? I
yeah,
never understood what the reasoning was behind that, and I'm sure that there was like some kind of
I'm gonna look it up.
vaguely religious like meaning behind like, oh, they don't have a soul so it wouldn't be reflected in the mirror or something like that. It's like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but where does garlic come into play? Like, why does that have such anti vampire
Yeah, it's the lack of
like
soul thing. It's the
properties?
lack of soul thing, or that they don't always have a shadow, which I think that's weird. Well, actually,
Yeah,
they wouldn't know, I guess, because unless there's a little bit of light in whatever room they're in, because not gonna.
yeah, because it's always
But
night.
uh, yeah, I've the actually I was thinking about this yesterday. The I remember on Wizards of Waverly Place when there is a rival sandwich shop that is run by vampires, and
Okay.
they say one of the younger brother is covered in pumpkin because they grow like a giant pumpkin or something. I don't remember, but they're like freaking out. They're like, "No, we actually uh, we hate pumpkins. Vampires hate pumpkins more than garlic, and that's why people would put out pumpkins on Halloween to ward off the vampires." So I'm like, "Oh, that's okay." That's a little more of a reason than the
I've
garlic thing.
never,
I don't know if that's an actual
I've
myth or that's just what
never
they said, but that
I've never heard that one before. I've kind of heard that it was just kind of used to just kind of like scare off or welcome like spirits on
yeah,
Halloween and Dia de los Muertos.
I don't know.
Um,
That this is Wizards of
yeah,
Waverly Place logic. I was just thinking about that yesterday with
yeah.
the all of the garlic
I,
talk.
I think that was just kind of its own joke.
Probably. I just was like, oh, that's creative. Okay. Um.
I'll give him that, I guess.
So they jumping ahead a little. They decide to infiltrate. They decide to go kill because they got to kill the head. So they think it's not Max. It must be David. So they decide to go into their lair, and they're all asleep. They're hanging upside
Yeah,
down like
yeah.
bats, all
Oh
asleep.
yeah, but before
Oh,
that, Michael brings out Star and Vlad and like brings them into the car.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, they'll be saved. Like, don't kill them. Just do what you got to do with to the others.
And they put a stake in one. He wakes up and falls and
And
freaks
I
out.
and I think it was Ted or
Bill.
Bill. Fucking yeah,
Also, yeah,
one of
yeah,
them.
and he falls, and then they they're like staking him again, and his blood is like shooting out on them, and it looks like syrup. And
It probably
Corey
was.
Feldman said that they add glitter to it to make it look shinier because they wanted to make it look different than like
Yeah,
human blood.
yeah. That's one. Yeah, when they leave the cave, they're just covered head to toe in glitter. It's like, oh man, they're gonna ruin the inside of that car when they get in it because the car that they're driving, they take their grandpa's car and it's like this like really like vintage like 60s like looking car, just like really nice convertible car. And it's like, oh, they're gonna ruin that
Oh my
car.
god!
Damn it.
So they the first day like because they don't know which one for sure is the head because it could be any of them, but they're like, oh, we'll just kill all of them, and then of course they only kill one. They then are trying to escape, and uh, David Kiefer Sutherland is pulling has Sam. He's like pulling him back, and then like Sun touches him, and they like all get out, and they are about to get in the car, and I think maybe he's referring to Star, but they're like, and like Lottie, but they're like, we don't ride with vampires, and it's like, did
like,
you get over
fine,
here?
you can stay
First
here.
of all, didn't you get a ride from? Didn't they all go in the car together with Michael driving? They already got a ride from him. But then they're like, oh well, we do now, and they get in, and then they get back to the house. They bring Star and went upstairs, and the grandpa walks in, and he's like, hey, and you think he's gonna make some comment about what's going on, but he goes, do you know the rule about filling up the car with gas after you used it? And he's like, Bugs like, no. And he's like, now you do. And then walks away.
Wait. Yeah, it's like, well, you do now. And it's like, he's not going to question the fact that they're just bringing up this, like, unconscious, like, teenage girl and this, like, 8-year-old boy just, like, up the stairs to their room.
We were laughing so hard. The grandpa is great. He's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh, and they realize, like, oh, man, like, we only have, like, a couple hours to get ready to prepare. And that's when we get, like, them, like, running to the church, like, filling up like, all their canteens with holy water and just filling in the bathtub with like garlic and holy water. And their excuse to get rid of the grandpa, Corey just like goes up to him, is like, hey, the widow Johnson says to pick her up at 7 instead of 8. It's like, we got a date tonight. It's like, I guess so. It's like, oh wow, all right, I better get ready.
And he like does like that like thing with his eyebrows, like he's very into the widow Johnson.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because earlier on, like the scene after the morning after Michael comes back after the sex scene, is like Grandpa's just kind of like walking around in his robe and it's like, oh, looks like I wasn't the only one who got lucky last night. It's like, Grandpa, you old so and so.
Instead of like Nosferatu, like Grandpa.
Basically.
But yeah, so they're trying to prep for the vampires, and I just love this. Like, yeah, they're filling up their squirt guns with holy water, and I'm like, because that's just that's what you have. That's like your.
I mean, it's effective.
Yeah, for sure. And Michael is dicing up garlic with the like, I don't know what's called, the like
a mallet.
Yes, and first I'm like, they just have that, okay, and then I'm like, wait, that's a huge bag of garlic. It was the size.
I was going to say that.
It was the size of like the couch I was sitting on when I was watching this. I'm like, where did they get that huge?
It's like a giant like Costco size like duffel bag of like dog food.
It's huge, yeah.
Like that's what it looks like. It's just huge, of just giant like cloves of garlic, and he's just he's not even like putting them in a bowl. He's just like taking them out, smashing it, just splattering it all over this kitchen, and then takes out another one. It's like, wait, you're not gonna like pick that up, or like what was your point of that?
They then fill the bathtub with garlic, and do we know that it's holy water, or do we just?
Yeah, well, I'm sure like not all of it's holy water, because they fill that bathtub to the brim, and they only filled up like their canteen, like 3 canteens full.
Yeah.
And like they were only in the church for like a few seconds.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a mix of holy water, garlic, and just normal like bath water.
Yes.
And it just, all of it mixed together just like made like the perfect concoction. It's like, all right, if we mix enough holy water in here, all the water in here will be holy water. It's like, all right, I guess that makes sense.
And then night has fallen. They're waiting. So the dog, I guess I didn't realize what was going on with the dog, because this movie is very the aesthetics for this movie are great. It's definitely lit kind of dark. I mean, I know it's at night, but like there are a lot of scenes that are dark. So
oh, absolutely. Well, yeah.
The dog, I guess, I was like, what's going on? My sister's like, so the dog was like hooked, like
they left the dog outside.
Okay, she thought he was hooked on the fence, and they're trying to free him. They're trying to run back into the house, and the vampires are like fly. You don't see them flying, but they're like coming, and they're like, come on, like it is very tense. They just make it in, and they sent Star and the kid upstairs, and immediately the Frog Brothers try to kill them. And it's like, damn. Also, the kid also starting to. I mean, again, hasn't fed, but his like fangs are showing, and she's like begging
Yeah,
him, like, don't kill him. He's a kid.
he yeah, he's kind of going feral, and then like they end up fighting like one of the other vampires. Like he just like shows up, just knocks like the squirt gun out of holy water out of their hand, and then just rips the stake and just like, you guys are jokes. Like, you guys are dead. You killed Marco. It's like, yeah, we're gonna kill you, corpse breath. And then the dog just tackles him into the
Yes,
bathtub,
and then
and then he just
it's
melts. Oh my
God,
god!
and then the blood or whatever starts spewting out of faucets and in the
Every
kitchen and the kitchen. And my sister were watching this, and she's like, oh, it's like that scene in It, uh where Bev in the first one
oh
has like the
yeah,
room is filled with blood. But what was funny was I asked her, I confirmed it, because when she saw this in theaters, when she saw It in theaters, that part with the blood, because that was kind of symbolizing, Bev's afraid of blood and getting her period because her
yeah.
father, and she's like, and she guessed she was like on a date when she saw it was a guy, and she went to him and went, oh, I remember my first period.
Oh my
I
god.
was like, and I asked her, I'm like, did you say that? She's like, yeah. I mean, this is different.
Knowing your sister, she would absolutely say that. Oh my god.
I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, that's not
Okay.
the takeaway. That's not quite the issue. um,
I don't really have much to say after that. I had a thought, now I'm completely lost. So you take it away.
so,
What?
so, yeah, vampires are breaking into the house. They're fighting them off, and the ultimate, battle is
They kill a couple of
Michael
them.
and Michael and David. And David's like, I don't want to kill you. I want you to, be like us. Just do it. Just feed. And he's like, never. Like, but and then
I'll never join the dark side.
yeah, such like he kills him, but it makes more sense, like almost the same way as Sean Connery kills that guy in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He shoves him
Yeah, he
into
doesn't
his grandpa's, like, he has all these like
taxidermy
taxidermy stuff
shop.
with like the antlers, and like shoves them onto that. Um, and
And we get the children choir again singing
and
as he's dying.
and this is when he starts to kind of go feral, and he's worried he's gonna feed off of David, which I'm like, so I get maybe like as a vampire you can feed off other vampires, but like to complete your transition you could feed off another vampire. Like, doesn't that seem kind of, shouldn't it be a person? I would think. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Okay, regardless, he's starting to kind of change, and his fangs are showing, and stars like got him covered. And then the mom, the mom's on her date, and she like is about to confide to Max what her son, like her crazy son, told her. They come home, and she's like, what just happened? Like, what's going on? And then this is when and then he sees that we see that this can't be right. David is dead, yet no one's changed. They're still they're still half vampires. And then
Yeah.
we see officially David is the head vampire. And
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, my boys made a bit of a mess of things.
I will
It's like, I
say,
knew if I brought Michael and Sam in, then you would have no choice but to join as well. It's like, I still want you, Lucy. It's like, all right.
and then the ending is becoming like mom's got a date with a vampire. Just very different. But this was like, I like how they did this, because yeah, I didn't really suspect him, and then, but especially because they were suspecting him, I thought he's probably not a vampire, and towards the end they started putting little implications that he might be. So I don't know. I really liked how it was a reveal that he's a vampire. Like, it wasn't blatantly obvious, at least to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then there's this like another fight between them, and he's about to bite Diane Weiss. He's about to.
Yeah,
I was like, no.
Yeah, he basically just like beats up everyone there, including like Michael, Frog Brothers, Star, and then he just has like Sam in like a headlock and just like looks like he's like he's very much clearly strong enough that he can just snap his neck and like kill him in this headlock. It's like join me or I can't be responsible for what happens. Like, oh, fine.
Yeah.
She goes up to him and then we hear like the car horn of like the that their grandpa has, and just him backing his car up and just have these like giant like fence posts that he's been like putting around his property, and just impales him just by pure luck with one of them, and he just rockets into the fireplace and explodes. And this is when we get the magical line of, one thing I couldn't stand about Santa Carla, all the damn vampires. And then it cuts to the
And
end.
I was like, don't, I was like, cut. Let this be the
I'm
end.
sorry, what?
I was like, cut. Let this be the end. That's a great ending. And then it does, and I'm like, thank God, because that was such. When he
Yeah,
said that, I'm like, ah, he knew the whole time. And
I know that's so much implications. Like, wait, he knew this entire time that there are vampires in Santa Carla. It's like, so he knew that, and the Frog Brothers knew that. Is this just public knowledge that vampires exist in Santa
I
Carla,
mean, it could be
and no one
like,
just knew?
I mean, it could be like local legends, but that never really comes up on why they know
Yeah,
that. Other than, I don't know, they might just, there's evidence that suggests otherwise. Like, going back to like Vampire Diaries, for example, the town at one point was, everyone kind of knew, it was like they were, people were pretty aware of them. And
yeah,
when the brothers go back to the town, well, he's trying really hard to keep a low profile because he doesn't want the town to be aware that, yeah, vampires
yeah.
are back. So,
I don't know.
you
I
know,
don't know. Maybe it's kind of explained further, like, or at least more for like the Frog Brothers on like why or how they know all that they know about vampires, because there is a sequel of the Lost Boys that's just the focus of the Frog Brothers, or at least Corey Feldman, and
yeah,
it's just him as a grown up fighting
this is like
vampires. I
2010.
hear, yeah, I hear it's god awful, but I mean that's never stopped me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I saw that, and there's a couple of like random sequels, and this is a movie that um I really, as much as I like
Did not
these,
really need
yeah,
one.
as much as I do like these characters, it doesn't really warrant a sequel. But also, I really hope they never remake this movie. It's kind of perfect the way it is, and I think it
Yeah,
doesn't, like, the coastal town is part of, like, gives it character, as well as the fact that it's an 80s as opposed to it being, if they redo it and it's set in like modern day. It's just really great the way it is, and it doesn't need to, it doesn't, I don't need another one. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. I was really thrilled with this movie. So that's kind of the end of the movie. So something that we want to try doing now here at Movie Reel is, we're going to ask a question. Is this movie real? Could it happen? Are the actions of the character believable? Things like that. So Kevin,
yeah, and
yep.
yeah, no, like I know that like there's going to be like this suspension disbelief, like, but vampires aren't real. It's like, pretend that they are.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
could this situation actually
It's,
happen?
yeah,
Like that is kind of like the thing that we're going to have to do, of just like suspension disbelief for like a lot of movies, because they do have fantastical or supernatural elements that realistically do not or could not exist otherwise.
Kevin, do you think this movie is real? And
I
anything
think
really?
that the way that the vampires kind of conduct themselves, of just them going around kind of killing people indiscriminately, because they go on multiple killing sprees throughout this movie, it does draw into question of what the local authorities think, because we never see that side of this movie of people actively investigating all these disappearances
Mm-hmm.
slash murders, other than the Frog Brothers, who just automatically know that it's vampires.
Yeah,
So I'm going to say no. I don't think this movie could happen in real life, because there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there is foul play, and fair enough of foul play that doesn't seem natural. And if the Frog Brothers like automatically know that it's vampires, and the grandpa knows that vampires are a thing, then chances are someone in like either the like police or local government knows something and would have like some kind of a solution to stop or prevent this.
that's a really good point. I did not think about that, because I mean, as far as we know, the missing posters could be the indicator that there are police in on it. That, not in on it, but just like they are
Yeah.
doing their job and trying to find these people. They're clearly not doing a very good job of it. Um, I think the actions
Yeah.
of all of the characters is very real. I totally bought it. I think the only thing I didn't buy was I think like I said when Sam just varies like hey, you're a vampire. Like he just I know he's reading a comic, but it just seems very just he kind of just jumps to conclusions just to like kind of keep
Yeah.
the movie going. If there was like a scene of like a scene like he took a day to kind of put the pieces together, um, that would have been a little more realistic. Um, I think yeah, I interesting because I was gonna say I did think this was real, other than that one scene. Um, but you, I don't know, you brought up a really interesting point. I think
Oh, and
yeah.
actually, no, there is kind of like a throwaway line where like the Frog Brothers like say this like we also think that the local government is like or is like populated by ghouls. Is like so there's other supernatural creatures as well. So it's like maybe
Oh,
like that does kind of like explain like why it's not being as investigated because like I guess like supernatural creatures watch out for each other in this world.
I think there's just not enough information on the town itself. The town is really
Yeah,
just I mean, honestly, the town's kind of like a character. The town's just kind of part of the story, but it's not we don't really get really much background on it. Uh and I also feel like Michael himself is I really like his character, but he is like a little bit flat. Sam is a little
fleshed
more
out.
fleshed out. Um, so I think the actions of the characters are very realistic, but I think yeah, the circumstances of the town aren't fleshed out enough to. I think I'd say yeah, that's not real, but the characters I think nailed it. Like I really really enjoyed the
Yeah.
characters. It's a really fun movie. I really really enjoyed it. It well
Yeah.
not
I,
now, but Santa Cruz they do at the boardwalk they do like movie nights throughout the summer, and this is they play this every year, and
oh, absolutely.
I mean it's movies like it'll be like that or uh I don't know. Actually, I can't even think of another movie. I just know they always do Lost Boys, but they do other movies. I'd probably like Goonies, stuff like that. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I can see them playing that. I mean, that's another like classic Corey Feldman movie that he was
yeah.
in.
Um, so yeah, okay. Moving on. In our mini hiatus, Kevin, do you have any recommendations? Have you been watching anything?
Um, well, right now, I've just kind of been like rewatching like some like random classics. I did stumble upon this really like really weird movie. It was an indie movie. Um, I I actually think it's really fun. It's not that weird. It's has like a similar vibe to Napoleon Dynamite,
Okay.
and it's called the it's actually free to watch on Amazon Prime, and it stars Justin Long. Uh, called it's either the Sasquatch Gang or the Bigfoot Gang, and it's kind of like this really funny slice of life comedy of just one continuous story, but it's being told through like the point of views of like multiple different characters and like small vignettes and chapters um, of these like group of like nerdy friends goes on like this random like hiking trail and they find what they believe to be evidence that it's like oh we found Bigfoot tracks like oh we're gonna be famous and it follows like kind of like their kind of like story and then it follows like Justin Long who's just like this like deadbeat lazy kind of like mullet like douche
Hmm.
and it's really funny. It has a lot of character. It has several actors from Napoleon Dynamite. Like John Heater shows up at one point. Uncle Rico is like the sheriff of the town. It's really funny, and they have I think like the only like big name actor that they have in it is Carl Weathers, who is the like Sasquatch expert that they show up just like, can you like verify that this is real? It's like, oh, I can in fact verify if this is real or not. It's really funny. It's very wholesome. There's a couple scenes in it that are just so out of place and funny. But it's a very nonsensical kind of like slice of life story, and I definitely would recommend it.
I'm trying to find what's it. What do you think it's called again?
Uh, I'm just gonna look it up right now. I think it's called the Bigfoot Gang.
To Justin Long, right?
Yeah.
I am.
Oh no, it's called the Sasquatch
Oh, okay,
Gang.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as I know, I believe it is still free to watch on Amazon Prime. That might have changed since by the time we've recorded this, but I would definitely be down to do an episode of this.
Okay.
Do you have any recommendations for the people at home, Sam?
So, I okay. So in TV, I know it's movies, but I want to talk about it. I've been watching. I'm almost done. I finished Community. I finally finished Community. It
Yeah,
it
that's a
went
great
on
one.
it went on Netflix, and I got excited, and then I'm like, wait, it's on Hulu. I've been watching it on Hulu. I don't need to be more excited that it's on another platform. But I finished Community, which Community is really great. If you haven't checked it out, it's super funny. There's very few shows like it. I think the
6 seasons in a movie.
yeah, we're waiting for the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm almost done. I've been watching Narcos, which I was supposed to go to Japan in April. Obviously, that didn't happen, and I was planning on binging it on the flight. And then I, you know, life, whatever. And then I was watching the docu series, the Mandalorian docu series, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to, because Pedro Pascal. I'm like, oh, I've been meaning to watch Narcos. I should watch that. And it's there's 3 seasons, 10 episodes each. It's really, really great. I can't recommend it enough. I did not expect to like it as much as I do. The first 2 seasons are about Pablo Escobar. The third season is about the Cali cartel, which is another major, major drug cartel. It's just really, it's just really interesting, especially because I didn't really know much about Pablo Escobar. I knew the name. I didn't really know who or what he did. Um, but
Yeah.
it made me kind of think of how, there's the whole idea of every villain thinks they're the hero in their own stories, and that's like he 100% feels that and believes that. Like, but he's done
Yeah, because
horrible things. Like, I think
yeah,
for me, what truly it's a little bit of spoiler, but also this happened in real life. So there is what really made him so evil was just that the people he cares about, like his family, like his wife, his kids, his mother, his cousin, who's his right hand man, his best friend. There are people that he cares so much about, but there's some that he is just so willing to use as like pawns. Like
cannon fodder.
there is a part he has this guy working for him, this guy who's a new father and he's married and he's so excited to go on this trip. And he's been told, hey, you're just going to record a conversation for us on the flight. He presses the button and it's a bomb and the plane explodes. Like he's killed like they think maybe 3,000 or so people to keep
Jesus.
his empire. It's crazy, but it's also weird because there's a weird part of him that you like him because they humanize him so much. And Pedro Pascal and Boyd Holbrook are the DEA agents that are trying to take him down. It's really wild, and it's so. I know that they did change a few things, obviously, because it is a series, but it is based off of real life, and it's pretty wild. But I recommend that for Netflix. Movies, I watched Kingsman finally.
Oh, you did
Yeah,
the
I
first
watched
one.
both. Uh,
Oh, okay.
I liked them. They're interesting because they're kind of takes. They're a take on like they're kind of going after
The comic.
a comic. I mean the like classic spy movies. So it's like a funny James Bond. I really want to do a episode about that because I have so much to talk about. Um,
Yeah, no, they're really
the
fun.
the especially the villain in the second one, Julianne Moore. She reminds me of like almost like a psycho Kim Possible villain. Like like she's
I can kind
do
of
you know what I
see her
mean?
in a Kim Possible show.
Minus her dealing drugs and forcing anyone who joins her empire to kill someone and then eat them. Like other than
Yeah,
that,
and and her random like like American graffiti, like 50s diner
yeah,
aesthetic of her hideout. Like it's very much a themed villain hideout. It's like, Yeah, no, this is definitely like a Kim Possible thing.
I felt like there were a couple in both movies. There were things where I'm like, wait a minute, like they are fun movies, but and I do love how even Samuel Jackson, who's the bad guy in the first one, he even addresses like he loves the idea of like he loves when it's like a villain who's very like theatrical and makes a big deal out of things and goes very like that's what they're trying to do, and so they're definitely they're fun movies.
That yeah, they're mildly self aware, and one of the things is like I am kind of bummed about because of like the whole like COVID-19 thing, like shutting down like the theaters and pretty much like halting like a lot of movie productions. Was there was going to be a prequel to Kingsman just called The King's
Oh
Man,
yeah,
which takes place during World War I, starring Ralph Fiennes, and just kind of shows how Kingsman like
came to be.
first
Yeah,
got started. Yeah, that it was like their like origin story to like their organization. And
yeah.
as far as I know, I think like that production is completely
I
halted.
thought it was. It's not
Um,
finished yet. I mean, the trailers was out,
the trailer's been out for like a year
but the
now,
movie. Oh, okay.
or at least it
It
feels
feels
like
like yeah,
it.
yeah.
But yeah, because I think that was originally supposed to come out in like March or
There's
April.
supposed to be a third Kingsman.
Um,
The director wants to do
yeah,
a third one to complete the trilogy. But the thing is, it's not like a trilogy. Like it's, I mean, if they get to make the third one, it's because the second one, other than the fact that a character from the first one, a kind of he was an antagonist and then becomes a one of the villains in the second one, they're kind of
yeah.
unrelated. You know what I mean?
For the most part, is it's its own standalone movie, but you don't need to watch the first one to get like
Not really.
the
Yeah.
full picture. Because I mean, they walk you through like everything that happens in the first one
It's just
that
like
pertains to the
another. It's
second one.
think of like James Bond. It's just kind of like an adventure movie. You don't really need to see.
Yeah.
It's not like yeah. And my sister and I, like I said, the podcast we listen to, the Flophouse. We've been watching a lot of movies that they've been doing. We do that occasionally. So like a while back, we watched Geostorm and The Meg. The Meg is so much fun. Everybody needs to watch The Meg.
Oh,
Geos
I saw that in theaters.
and the Meg was hilarious and it was so much fun. Geostorm was hilariously terrible. Like it was really bad. We were not that into it, but it was really goodly, perfectly dumb. We watched a lot. We watched the Bratz movie, which they talked about. We watched Gods of Egypt. Um, and
Oh my
we watched
god.
Abduction, the Taylor Lautner movie, which we had both already seen, but we were watching it since listening to the podcast about it.
Yeah,
And we watched Cats. And my sister,
that
when
is
we watched it,
quite.
she had already seen it, and she loves it. It's garbage. That's why she loves it. It's because it's so bad. But she could not wait to show me. She kept saying, "When do you want to watch Cats? When do you want to watch Cats?" Um, I
I don't think I'm ever gonna be willing to like watch that.
She
To be
told
honest,
me if we ever do Cats, she wants to come on as a guest because she like
I
this is the thing
I'm
about it.
that
It was it's crazy because and it confirmed what I'd already knew and what I've seen on like reviews where they say like, yeah, the production value is amazing, like the set design is unbelievable, and the choreography is great, and the music's really catchy. The problem is, it's just first of all, it was already kind of a weird, kind of thin plot to begin with, and I think Tom Hooper, who directed it, is trying to give it a little bit more of a plot, but also the cats themselves, some of them look okay, some of them look horrifying, and the
yeah.
characters like Idris Elba, for example, and he's McCavity. He's like one of the like he's like the villain. He when we first meet him, he's wearing a hat and he's got like a giant coat on. And the characters that they give clothes to actually look a lot better than the rest because they already are people. They have human hands and human feet. Just the fact that they and it making them more human was good. Like, okay, they're cats, great, but like the fact it was weird. It to me it wasn't as
They kept going back and forth between like feline and human
it's because
looking.
most of them weren't wearing. They were just wearing fur, and some of them had Ian McKellen was wearing like a coat, and there's Skimbleshanks, the railway cat. He's wearing like pants, suspenders, and a hat. Like the ones that ran with the human aspect and gave them clothes looked better and were less weird to look at. And they should have just done that with
Yeah.
all of them. And I feel like I think it's
Yeah.
because it's bad, but it's not like I. And my sister's like telling her friend, she's like, yeah, she was defending it. I'm like, I wasn't defending it because I thought it was like good. It confirmed it was bad in the way I knew. Like there were mice that were horrifying looking. They were so crappy looking. Like it's just a weird because it's a fascinating bad movie because so much. It's not like a shitty B movie where it's the director, writer, actor might have put their heart and soul into it, but it's terrible. Like a lot of effort was put into this, and a lot of aspects of this movie are great. The problem is the special effects for the cats is just so weird that it doesn't. Everything else is kind of
Yeah.
obsolete. It's a good bad movie if you're looking at something to laugh at or watch while under the influence. Um,
Yeah. So yeah, moving on to movie news, we got two stories. One of them kind of was a bit of a gut punch. So the other day, we received the unfortunate news that the actor Sir Ian Holmes, who some of you may know as Bilbo Baggins from The Lord of the Rings, passed away the other day at the age of 88 at the time of this recording. Um, that is a huge gut punch. I'm a huge fan of him in Lord of the Rings as well as in Alien. He was the android character in the first one, and yeah, he will be missed. That was I was really sad to hear that he had passed away. He is a phenomenal actor. I hope that everyone that is directly related and affected by him is doing all right. And there is, I did hear that Peter Jackson is going to be paying tribute to him in some way. I didn't really hear much about that yet. This is still kind of developing as we're recording. So hopefully we kind of get more news about that in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw
And
that. That was sad.
yeah,
But I mean, he lived a
yeah,
long life. He got to be in a really. Was he? I don't remember. Was he in all of them or just the first one?
he was in the first one and the last one,
Right.
and then he showed up in the first Hobbit and the last Hobbit movie.
As like an old Bilbo.
At, no, he it that was one thing I liked about the Hobbit is that the beginning of the Hobbit movie is like the entire like trilogy of The Hobbit is just told in a flashback by Ian Holm, like in the very beginning of Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Like it's just because the Fellowship of the Ring just starts off with like him writing his book and finishing it, and then giving it to Frodo. And the way that the last Hobbit movie ends, it ends with Gandalf knocking on his door and him and their interaction in the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, and just this, in my opinion, a seamless transition. It works so well, and it's like, oh, that is like honestly like one of my favorite parts of the Hobbit is just how well they like seamlessly like transition it into um, Lord of the Rings. I mean, love them or hate the Hobbit movies, that is a really good
Mm-hmm.
touch. Um, and the other bit of movie news is kind of a surprising movie of how a filmmaker got the number one movie in America during this pandemic. This guy made a short Zoom horror movie, then put it in theaters, bought out all the seats, aired it to no one, and because of that, because of like all the tickets that he technically sold, it became the number one movie in America on I believe June
What is
10th.
the movie called?
I actually don't know. I'm trying to like look up this information, but he basically just made this like really short horror movie entirely on Zoom, which honestly that sounds like a really cool premise, and then just put it in a empty movie theater after buying all the movie tickets, and because of that it became the number one movie in America because all the other theaters are completely closed.
I don't how I don't even know how to react. What?
Yeah, it was just like
Wow.
that yeah, that's like
Wow.
props to you, man.
Yeah.
That's really ambitious.
That's wow.
And also, that was like all out of pocket cost too, because like he's not going to get any money off of that
Yeah.
because he had to buy an entire theater's worth of tickets and then pay for that movie and then pay for that movie to be in
He
theaters.
can at least say I've had a number one movie in America.
Yeah, it's like that is just so impressive.
Oh man, wow! I did not know that. I have not heard about that.
Yeah, you can kind of just look up just like
Yeah,
Zoom horror movie, and you can probably just find like a link to an article just kind of talking about that. That's kind of I just kind of like randomly came across this like on Reddit of all places, and just like I thought it was a bogus thing, but apparently like that's a thing.
that's funny.
It was just kind of like
That's
it was just a really funny, surprising news. So yeah, just wanted to share that with
I've
everyone.
been seeing a lot of how like AMC is starting to open up theaters, and or they're going to start open up in like July or the end of the month or something. And I that's the thing is because I do want to go sit in the theater, and I'm fine with wearing a mask. It's more of do I want to
Social
it's not
distancing.
even the social I mean social distancing because yeah you can have they're only going to let in so many people which is like okay fine fair enough. I before all this happened uh my friends and I bought tickets for Mulan and then got week right before it was like the week before we all everything shut down they canceled the movie and I got my money back but ironically
Well, that's
we
good.
were supposed to we also that same weekend, it's going to be in Oakland. Tommy Wiseau is going to do a private screening of The Room, and I've been to one of those.
Oh
I've
my
been to one of
god.
those with my sister. I actually was contemplating inviting you,
I
Kevin.
yeah, I went. Yeah, I went to one of those with you and Aaron, who was for those of you who don't know, he was
Oh,
our guest star on oh god,
the
what
Space Jam.
Space Jam?
That was
Fuck, what
or
was he on?
that was the re-release, and I'm like, I'm not going. And my mom's like, let me get this straight. You're driving an hour and a half away to go see a movie that you've already seen. I'm like, yes.
And that you
And that I
own.
own, and I've seen it so many times, and I've shown it to me. Showing people bad movies has become my favorite thing because I already seen it, so I guess just get to watch the reactions. I showed my friend Samurai Cop, and it was
Oh my
so funny
god.
to watch. Like their, I mean, I'd been a while since I seen it, but it was so funny to watch like the reactions at some things. Um, but anyway, we and it was gonna be that same weekend, and we were gonna buy tickets, and I'm like and he was going to be there though too. And I've been to one of those too, and they're really fun. And but it's also just fun because it's a really fun audience. It's a really fun group of people. And
Yeah, it's such a fun kind of community
yeah,
that just
I remember
you can kind of just laugh at the
when
absurd.
we were waiting for during the the re-release, we were waiting to for the movie to start, and I remember somebody. It took forever. Like there were not even just the previews; there were just all these like movie like whatever junk beforehand. And someone behind us, I heard them go, this is tearing me apart, like the waiting. And we're like it's that kind of it's a really fun audience. But we after Mulan got canceled, I'm like, well, I'm glad we didn't buy tickets. Shouldn't buy tickets to The Room because that's probably gonna get canceled, and it did. But and that thing is like Mulan's coming obviously going to be in theaters at the end of next month, and I want to go see it, but I've also read that it got horrible reviews, and I'm like, but I want to go see it, but is it worth it? Like
Yeah,
I don't know.
m-
So
a lot of like the recent like live action Disney movies, it just like the first couple were like fine. Like I enjoyed Jungle Book. Like that was a fun movie, but like after a while it just seemed to get repetitive and it just seemed like all right, I've seen enough of them to know that they're just remaking it and only just kind of putting in like mild like modern differences and
well,
it doesn't seem worth it anymore in my
John
opinion.
Favreau, especially with like Lion King. I know Lion King didn't do as well as I was kind of disappointed. I thought part of that was because you lose a lot in when, especially because they're animals. So he had to make changes
Yeah.
that like an animal is not going to do a goose step. An animal is not going to have like the facial expressions. You know what I mean? Like, facial expressions are different. So, um,
Yeah.
I felt I saw with my friends and we both felt like, yeah, you kind of lose a lot for going from the animated to live action. But in terms of the story, I felt like he hacked it because, and I'm like, Okay, like yeah, Jungle Book was great. I thought Cinderella is very, very underrated. Um, Beauty and the Beast, I love. There were a few problems with it, but I did really enjoy it. But yeah, no, I mean, I still wanted to. I don't know what's gonna happen with that. It's weird. Like the thought of it's not even the social distancing. It's just like yeah, it's just like the thought of going out and being around other people. Like I'm kind of slowly trying to expand my circle. I'm still like being trying to maintain a little bit of distance from people, but seeing more people just because I need to see another human being that's not my parents. um,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it is kind of hard just to deal with quarantine, but for everyone listening, I know you're driving yourself crazy, seeing like interacting with like the same few people, or if you're living alone in isolation, just bear with it. We'll get through this if we stick together. Wear a face mask, wash your hands, and just be smart and be safe out there, everyone.
All right. On that note, I am Samantha Tomlinson.
And I'm Kevin Tracy. See you next time, folks. Bye bye.